right, MFP community, we have Guy. We'll let him say his last name when he gets there. You want to say your last name for me, Guy?
Yeah, Abromovitz.
Abromovitz.
Easy last
Okay.
name.
I usually say the Guy machine.
Yeah.
He might have a few other names with the other coaches here, but we are in the presence of Guy for our member highlight episode here. And we're going to talk about all the fun things as we usually do with the journey of CrossFit, getting to know Guy a little bit better, and also how Guy starts to apply, again, this whole MFP mission, which is, again, not just the physical, like how do we show up in all areas of our life. So as always, let's just take a moment here, just take 3 breaths and get into our space. So wherever you're at, just close your eyes. If you're driving, just cruise control here in your own mind space. And just take that moment to recognize that someone is taking time out of their day to share, support, and to allow us to relate to with their CrossFit journey. Just giving gratitude to Guy and giving gratitude to yourself for just taking this time during your day to listen and support our MFP mission with this podcast. So let's take our 3 breaths. Take a deep inhale through your nose. Hold. Slow exhale. Inhale. Hold. Let it out. Last one, best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, and exhale. Let it all out. Just reminding yourself that every time you take those 3 breaths, it's allowing you to just reset energetically into the space, okay? All right, so we got a joke quote here, Guy, so let it rip.
All right, so my quote today is from Lex Friedman and says, "I believe disagreement is an art. It requires care, it requires skills, it requires compassion and respect. When there's underlying respect, you get to play. There's humor, there's wit. Ultimately, you arrive at something profound as a result." So I just, I love this idea of reframing disagreement into like a growth opportunity between people, because especially in our world, it could become such a heated thing, right? And it's just like disagreement's awesome. Like we shouldn't all agree on everything. And I think that if we approach it with just like in a careful way or in just this compassionate way and respectful way,
Yeah.
it could be a really cool thing. Like, I mean, none of us agree on everything, and that's a good thing. So just reframing that.
Yeah, I always come back to just the idea of empathy, and we talk about gratitude, but like you have these superpowers, and obviously compassion is one, and just also knowing we talked about polarity, the other week ago, and polarity is just it's a pattern of the universe, right? It's not always going to be, even though we are all in one, right? We all have a common theme within all of us, regardless if we're aware of it or not. It's okay to understand that, whether if it's a view, whether if it's, a way of life or whatever, it's just still like, how do we find a common theme of it? And also how do we, again, respect and have empathy and compassion and understanding from where they're at from a whole being perspective point. So, Guy, is this quote, what does this mean to you, man?
So I didn't prepare for that quote, but
what comes to your mind?
No, we're all different in our lives as athletes, and we have to accept that, right? And it's okay. I mean, I'll use the CrossFit for I can't overhead squat. It's okay, but I happen to be pretty good at cleans. And then other athletes are good at things and not so good at others, and that's okay. And I think that's what makes us unique and makes us us, and that's really important.
Dude, Guy's like a wisdom keeper over here.
It's taken a long time to get here.
Well, this is why we have him on the podcast, y'all. And we actually talked about this. This was your quote the other week, Joe, where we talked about strengths and weaknesses, right? And so we can look at that as the same framework as this quote here today, but also just that mindset in general of understanding that allows you to kind of come back to center and enjoy the process of CrossFit, right? Because we're all going to have challenges. And not going to say like you can't overhead squat, because you can with a PVC pipe,
I can.
right?
Yes.
So that's also just a reframing of your own mindset.
True.
Like, it's probably very challenging and maybe not a necessary thing for you to think about doing an overhead squat with 185 pounds ever, right? But just having the function with a PVC pipe, that's a huge win.
Yeah.
And you are capable of a lot of things. And also knowing that like you have a lot of strengths in a lot of areas, which we've seen. So yeah, great perspective from Guy. And so let's talk about Guy a little bit, since he's our guest this week. And one of the reasons why I thought Guy was going to be a great prospect for a male to have on our episode here was, one, Guy has a journey of coming from another CrossFit gym into the CrossFit MFP space. And we have a lot of members in MFP that have come from multiple different CrossFit gyms, from not just from here, from Philly, from other states that have traveled here. And we usually get a lot of good feedback from members that get into the MFP space, and they understand that the approach and the way we do things here, it's a little non-traditional. Yes. Not saying that where anyone has come from and their other journeys didn't have any value, because I think that's a really good thing for me just to say as the owner here, like, not the way I do everything here and we do it is the right way, quote unquote, but I think there's a lot of growth for a lot of members that get to have that experience from one place to the other. So you don't only just have that background of being someone that can create a testimony for us, but I think what we'll talk about is just one of the things that we've learned right away is this: you got this, I call it the Guy glow.
Oh boy.
Right? You got a glow. I mean, if you guys are watching the video right now, like, there's like a glow in this face
Oh
here.
boy.
And there's a lot to that. I could just say from a ground level, it's just like you have a charisma about you that attracts. But in reality, from a shaman's perspective, you have a high spirit. And that's how your spirit starts to communicate through you and allows others to really just feel it, right? And I think you're also somebody that is willing to put yourself out there to make a connection with others. So there's a holistic point of view of why you're on our podcast today. Yeah. So anyway, enough of me talking about hyping up Guy. You're going to learn for yourself. So I think the first thing we want to just talk to you about is your life before CrossFit. So before you even decided to choose this methodology and fitness approach in your life, what were you doing before that, and what attracted you to make the decision to make change?
Yeah. So I've always played sports. Like, it's been a part of my life since I was a kid. And it's interesting because my parents didn't grow up with sports, really. I mean, they're foreigners. They came here when I was a baby. We came here, I should say. And they didn't care about sports. And I loved sports. I loved tennis. I loved baseball. I loved basketball. And all I did was play sports all the time. And it got to a point, though, you get to so I started CrossFit in 2011-ish. So I would have been 35, 36 at the time, right? And we can talk about that a little bit. But you get to that point in life where, like, the opportunities to play sports kind of diminish a little bit. Joe and I have played I play softball during the spring. I've played it for 20 years. But softball's like the Sunday sport. It doesn't require all that much athleticism. I play basketball once a week. But I was feeling like I needed to do more. And, like, running sucks. Sorry. I tried. And I did the Broad Street run. Like, I've done it. And so there's only two places in the world where, like, I think too much. I'm always thinking. Yeah. And there's only two places in the world where I forget everything. It's when I play sports and when I cook. It's crazy. So when I run, though, that's not playing sports. And my mind is constantly thinking. And when I'm here, I forget about everything. And it's such a relief. Like, it's so nice for an hour to walk in that door, put my phone down there. I don't touch it. I don't think you've ever seen me touch my phone. And I get to just like forget and just be here and do what I'm doing here. And it's really amazing. And it's like that reset I need. And I was missing it for a long time until I was in my mid-30s. And that's why I found like friends of ours. I mean, now we'll get into why CrossFit, right? I know I'm jumping ahead, but it's good. So there was only one box that started here in the area. This would have been like 2010, 2011. And I probably spent a year like visiting that box. I didn't work out. I was watching my friend. They'd have competitions every couple months. And they'd have like these member guests for like a day and I'd show up. But I didn't join because I didn't want to show like that vulnerability of not being good at something. Because I was good at sports, really good at sports. And so interesting story is I actually worked in like the Horsham area, which is, you know, like 30 miles north of here, 20 miles north. And I went and did foundations there. I did foundations at a gym around there because I wanted to be around people I didn't know. And I didn't want to show that vulnerability because I didn't know what a clean was. I didn't know what a squat was. I didn't know what anything was. So I did the foundations there, and then I got into CrossFit, and it was awesome. It was just that thing that I needed, that athletic, you know, event on a daily basis that I really needed for myself to be an athlete, to play, to compete. And that was like one of the best things I did for myself as like a physical being. Because even when I was in high school, in college, like I was heavy. So I was good at sports, but I was heavy. I wasn't fit. I was just athletic. I wasn't fit. And then I got fit and it felt really good. Yeah.
Well, I will attest that you are a great softball player. I have never seen you play basketball, but Guy is an excellent softball player. Now, you know, my question is, and I appreciate you sharing your story, how long did it like take you like to start, you know, becoming more open-minded towards learning new skills and like learning to maybe be bad at something and like, you know, because now like when I see you in here, like you show up with like the right mindset and I don't sense that in you at all, you know, like
took a long time,
you know, so like what was that like process of growth kind of like for you?
So that was not a process of growth here. It was a process of growth for myself. So I tell people this all the time when, you know, people reach out, they want to grab coffee, they want to get to know you, like just from a professional standpoint. And I say to them, and I say this to my son also, who's 20 years old, I say like in my 20s, I was a know-it-all. And I wasn't. I mean, little known story, I failed out of my first year of college, which you guys don't know. I went to school in London and I was the only freshman American and I failed out there. And it was like that kick in the ass I needed, but it still didn't quite get to me, right? It didn't. So 20s, I'm a know-it-all. 30s, and general, I realized I didn't know everything, but I tried to fake it. Hence, like, this vulnerability. I didn't want to show it at that box, at my home box. I wanted to show it at a different box. And then when I got to be 40-ish, whatever the date is, I finally realized, like, I don't know everything, and that's okay. It's not a big deal, because guess what? Everybody doesn't know things. And there are things I'm good at, and there are things I'm bad at, and you know what? That's okay. And that's life's journey. And you either try to improve the things you're bad at, or like with professional, in my professional life, I find someone that's an expert, and that's okay. So it took me a really long time to get comfortable. And frankly, it was the break. Like during the time where I took a break and during the time where I was sort of the end of my journey at the other box, like I started figuring myself out. It took a really long time. Like I think it took me longer than most, but at least I got there. But I realized like it's okay to be bad at stuff. And that's what I come here and I'm like, you know what, we're all just here trying to work out and get better. And that's okay. And so I'm good at the rower. There's some rowers out here. That bike, I do not like it. And so, but I still do it, right? But I'm not great at it. And that's okay. And, the other thing I've learned in kind of my old age is you got to figure out, you got to pick your moments. You got to pick your times, right? And so I would go to a dark place all the time at the other box.
Mhm.
I don't think you guys have ever seen me in a really dark place.
Mhm.
Maybe once or twice, but generally speaking, like, I can walk out of here, I'm fine. I don't need to be on the floor writhing around in pain for 15, 20 seconds or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it is. That's not going to get me to where I need to go. It's baby steps. It's not like all of a sudden I do a workout and I go, full metal to the wall or whatever it is. I'm terrible with those statements, whatever. Pedal to the metal, pedal to the metal. There you go. That's my thing. It's everybody. I suck at the.
That's all right.
Right, pedal. That's gonna be the new one. That's what they're gonna call me now. You're gonna clip that one. That's gonna be the one.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not gonna get there by doing a workout really hard.
Yes.
It's these baby steps, and that's what I've done since I joined here. Call it like, December of last year. It's these baby steps where I'm in much better shape than I was, 10 months ago. And that's good. Now, am I in the shape I want to be in? No, but it's a journey. It's not like it's it's the marathon, not the sprint. I got that one right.
Did get that one right. That was good. That was good.
Right?
That was good. That's good.
But that's the key to life, right? You're not gonna figure it out in a day.
Wow. I mean, I think that just whole stint of what Guy just went over there, that could probably be our whole podcast, right? That for today. That was really well done.
Thank you.
Well, first one, in terms of your story and some of the vulnerability, but just being, honest with your process is really important. And I always say, like, you never know how your story is going to impact somebody else's. And that's, a service to yourself, but a service to others. There's a lot of spiritual things I took from that in terms of, it's okay to have, struggle, and it's okay to have challenges where you can create a mindset shift of that towards growth. It's okay to ask for help. I think a lot of us really get stuck in our culture of, especially as men, and I do a lot of men's work and men's ceremonies and men's connection. And, how do we understand that it's okay to ask for help? And that doesn't necessarily, lessen who we are. It actually improves who we are.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things about that journey too. I mean, you guys just heard, like, he was starting CrossFit in 2011. That's longer than I've been doing. I started in 2012. And also just for people who are new to, CrossFit space or just in general, because we don't do this here, which is a foundations program. Mm-hmm. It's actually a very good business model for CrossFit affiliates. And it's also great for people who are brand new. It's basically one-on-one sessions with a coach that teaches you all the movements and the philosophies and the methodologies of what we do in CrossFit. We just don't have the space and the time and the logistics to do that here. Yeah. So when people, obviously, when you start, it's like, oh, hey, Guy, come for a free trial, try classes. Now I've learned through this process, like, how to actually navigate that on-ramping, quote unquote, into the free trial. And obviously help that you've already had an experience to, like, learn everything here. But, that's a long journey, right? I mean, we're talking over, 13 years of CrossFit, but like you said, which I kind of want you to touch on a little bit, there was a break.
There was a break.
Okay. And what I want to know a little bit is, one, why did you take the break? Mm-hmm. And you talked a little bit about what you learned about creating a growth mindset, and all these things, but, like, what was that break like? And then, how did that mindset specifically evolve? And then what made you, again, kind of reshape that mindset to come back in MFP with a completely different mindset?
So it's all of that is very family oriented.
Okay.
So, and I'll explain that, right? So, 2017, they opened up a Lifetime Fitness, right? And I wanted to work out with my family, with my wife, my kids. They weren't into this. So I was like, okay, so let's go over there. We'll take some classes together. And it sounded good in theory. In practice, it didn't work out that way. And my kids are now 18 and 20. They were, call it 6 years ago, so a little bit younger, but still old enough to go to that gym. And it just didn't work out that way. And again, we talked about, for me, the athletic part of CrossFit and how I'm able to just forget things. Mm-hmm. I didn't forget anything when I was there, right? So I'm on the treadmill, doing a class even there. I my mind is never turning off. And so it wasn't really fun. It wasn't interesting. So I dabbled in and thought about going back. And then COVID hit, right? And COVID kind of kicked us all kind of in the face a little bit. And I stopped doing most things, got fairly unhealthy, just generally speaking. And then I would say, and this goes back to family, my wife, back in, we'll call it like October, November of last year, we were driving and she kind of looked at me and she said, and please keep this is from a physical perspective. Okay. She said, "You're getting soft." No, it's okay. We've been married 23 years. It's perfectly fine. I have no issues with it. Yes. She goes, "You're getting soft. You're not, I don't think you could protect this family if you needed to." And I said immediately, because like and I'd been thinking about it. And I turned to her and I go, "I'm going back to CrossFit." And I knew I was going to come here. I knew it because I had already started doing, like I knew it. I'd done some research. I talked to a few people. So I was always planning on coming here. And as soon as she kind of, I mean, not the green light, because I could have done it before, but it was kind of that last little, you know how people will sit on their couch for months, years, and not move, and they just need that one boom. Yep. And once you get the one little boom, you're like, you start, right? Yep. And that was the last one that I needed. I needed that last final push, and then I probably emailed you the next day. Wow. And I haven't looked back. I mean, I thoroughly, like, now we're going to talk about, this place. It's different. It's just different. I'm sure we've all been to different boxes, and look, every box has their thing and they're fine. But this place, I was telling my wife even this weekend when we were away, I said I could come here every day and it would be okay because of the way the programming is structured. And also because of the way I come into the gym. I don't try to go to the dark place every day. But the way the programming is set, you could come every day because we're doing different things. It's not, and we're not trying to PR, a push press. Like I've actually never logged a score into Wodify since I've been here. And previously we would log our scores in and we would check the leaderboard, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, like how the whiteboard could become problematic if you just get too fixated on like numbers rather than like actual performance, actual longevity. And as you've been here, obviously, like when I think of you, like you're the sports guy, like you're always doing something, you're playing something, like you're super active. And that's why I think CrossFit is also just like so relevant for you, because the idea with CrossFit is you should go play sports. So like as you've been here almost a year, how has your life improved, just like quality of life, both at home, feeling physically, but also just in general with, how active you are? Obviously, the sports you play, baseball, softball, tennis.
Yeah, so I sleep way better, right? I'm tired at night. It doesn't take me a long time to get to sleep, and so I sleep better. And then, I plan my weeks around kind of the sports I do. And so Monday nights are basketball nights, right? You guys ask me about it. John will ask me when I come in on Tuesdays, like, how many points you score? Because I don't keep track of assists and rebounds. Just points. That's all I keep track of, right? How many threes I hit. And then I have to tell my son how many shots I took. He doesn't care if I score 2 points. He just wants me to shoot 15 times a night. And I play with a great group of guys, so I really enjoy. Thursday nights, I now play padel, which is like this weird sort of tennis, racquetball-ish mixture. No. Joe knows this, and everybody here knows it. I will not play pickleball, but I will tell you this. So I'm going to a wedding in a month in Arizona, and they've got a pickleball tournament on the Saturday, and I will win that pickleball tournament. Having never played.
He's calling a shot. He's calling a shot.
Played in 30 years. I played in high school.
All right.
But I have not picked up a racket since then.
I love it.
But I am going to win that tournament.
I love that.
So, and then softball, we play twice. Like, I just love playing sports. It really is
Yeah.
part of like me. And, it's interesting. So my kids were now empty nesters. I have less time now just to relax at home with the kids out of the house than I did when they were in the house, because I'm just constantly trying to do something and
Yes.
active and moving.
I love that, man.
Yeah,
Well, I got a few things on that. I love that you called your shot.
I did.
And
Now I have to win.
Well, you know what? It's I love that you do it in a way where, potentially what you're doing here is allowing you to grow in those areas of confidence, right? I mean, that's kind of our mission, right? Do what you do. What you do in here, does that translate into not just physical, but between the ears, right? And does that allow you to feel a certain way? Now, obviously, you're really embracing part of the methodology, which is learn and play new sports. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sport in general. It could just be a physical activity. But really, that's the essence of the methodology that we learn. You can learn that in a level 1. Like, that's what we want people to learn. It's not getting so fixated on the PR,
Right.
the dark place. It's about like, what are we doing? And this is the holistic point of view of like, what are we doing here that translates into so many more dimensions outside of our life? And, I just love that you touched on this whole concept of how you had this poor relationship, I would say. And I've had this too. And people, when I say this all the time about like how I program with the intensities, the intention, the structure, the tempo, the variety, like there's very set, because I've learned. I've very much learned how there are ways that it could be toxic physically in terms of like where it can become a burnout if it's like go sell your soul every day, but also how we lose the ability to make progress and how we lose the ability to actually understand why we're even here to begin with, right? And that's the fundamentals that we talk about, like what's our why? Why are we truly here? And does me trying to, PR lift or be first place on this workout, is that actually helping me in my mental approach to life? So yeah, I just think that was a really good way of you just kind of discussing that for us. I just really wanted to touch on that. But I do want to segue now into more about just who you are as a person, right? Because we can talk all about the CrossFit, but I think for all of us, again, I talk about the Guy glow, right? The spirit. And I think that's important. Not everyone recognizes, but like I could see that in a lot of people, because I say from just who I am as a person my whole life, and as from a shaman's approach, it's like I don't see physical bodies. I look at souls. I see people for what they truly are and who they truly are. And I know there's an energy that kind of guides you, and you might not even look at it like that. You just might be like, where does this personality of Guy come from? Is this something that you inherited? Is this from your parents? Is it just like, hey, I'm just this kind of guy who's just like this? But, what makes you you?
So it's interesting because I'm generally an introvert. So if you put me in a room with people I don't know, I just want whatever that experience is. If it's drinks for work, or I just want it to be over. I dread going there, and I am so relieved to go home. It's when I get comfortable with people, and when I feel like it's a community that embraces everybody for who they are. That's when you see it, right? And I think you guys see it. The 7:30 class, we have a good vibe, and we all have our personalities. We come out. 6:15 is a little more subdued, but there are a few, people I jive with, and so the personality comes out in small doses at 6:15, but not like at 7:30, right? Because 7:30, it's a gregarious bunch that, right? And I like the contrast, right? Yeah. Of sometimes going to 6:15, sometimes going to 7:30. But for me, it's about being around people who I like, who I think are good people. And when I'm in those situations, that's when you see who I am. And when I'm not in those situations, I can be a little bit, of a grouch. But I think in my old age also, I've realized like I don't put myself anymore in situations I don't want to be in. Now you have to sometimes, right? For work, for family, for community, whatever it is, right? But generally speaking, like my wife and I have this conversation before we get invited somewhere, or we get invited somewhere. We have the really quick conversation: Are we gonna have a good time? Am I gonna have a good time?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is no, like then let's say no. We're not gonna do that.
Mm.
Like let's not even do things we don't want to do.
Mm.
And so I think we're able to mix and match between the two of us and what we want to do, and that's when you see the personality. I mean, I see it in my dad a little bit. My wife will probably not have, if my dad's watching, but I think he's got it a little bit in him. And she's also, I mean, she's my better half, and that's not just, me saying that. She makes me a better person. And so, it's a combination of all the above. And then you have kids, and you kind of have to show them the way. And so you get to be 49 years old, and not that it's figured out, but it's, you're on that path. You're more figured out than you were 5, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and you create your own path too. Like one thing that has similarity between me and you, one being on the same softball team,
Yes.
but two, my parents also like were not into sports. Like my dad wasn't a sports guy, my mom wasn't, and you just like, you follow your own path. Like for me, all I wanted to do was play sports when I was a kid, and like very similar to you, like I resonate with that a lot. And it's cool to see like you've definitely come out of your shell here. Like I remember when you first walked in the door. First of all, I didn't know how to say your name because Marco is the worst with names, and Marco was saying Guy, but Marco cannot be trusted with names. So I was like waiting. I was waiting, but then I learned it was Guy.
It was Guy, though.
Yes.
But Marco's Marco's like my brother, and he still like says my wife's last name wrong. He still says Van Neen, and it's Van V. So Marco is the worst with names, and I love him for that. But anyway, my point is, it's been great to like see you like come out of your shell and like be who you are, and also been great to just connect with you outside of this place, like playing sports together. What was it about this community that allowed you to feel comfortable and really just like be yourself?
So I think it starts, and two of you guys are here. It starts with the coaching, and it starts with how warm and welcoming you guys are. Just generally speaking, walking into the box. Joe might be the nicest person I've ever met. I'll say it on camera, off camera. I don't think there's a mean bone in this gentleman's body.
No, there's not.
I don't, right? Like, you know him better than I do.
There's not.
And actually, I think your first week of coaching, first full week on your own, was when my first full week here. And I could see the evolution of you as well, by the way, because you were nervous at the beginning, right? And you had been, I'm assuming, shadowing, and you've been around here for years. But you've come into your own, and the same for me. You get more comfortable, and you just show more of who you are. But it's about the people. So we start with the coaches, obviously, and then it's the people. So I knew a few people, but I didn't know all that many. But at 6:15, I didn't know anybody. Mm-hmm. And as the personality comes out, as you get more comfortable, they start opening up to you as well. Mm-hmm. And I think it takes time with anything. Like I think it's look, you can only give a 1 week free trial. I understand, like you can't give month free trial or 2 months, but it does take like people who are just getting into it, like stick with it for a little while. Mm-hmm. If after 3 months you feel like you haven't connected, different story. But a week's not long enough. You have to give it more time. And I remember actually my first week, there was a guy who I knew from another box who came in and just started strapping weights on. We'll name him afterwards. Right. Started strapping weights on and doing like these back squats at like whatever it was. Yeah. And I was just not ready for that. And I had done back squats more of, and we were paired up. And I just knew, first of all, I didn't think he'd last. Yeah. And secondly, I wasn't going to pair up with him again. No, I just wasn't. And there's other guys who are way stronger than me. And they're like, let's pair up. Because they don't mind the on and off. Because you get to talk in between also. And that's the community building that you do. Yeah. It doesn't matter that I'm lifting, we'll call it whatever, it doesn't matter, 125 on a back squat, just because I'm trying to get back into it, and someone else is doing 225 or 215, because that makes, all the numbers didn't make sense. It's 135 and 225, right? But you know, they're strapping more weights on, but we're talking through this and we're connecting. And that's what makes it more fun. And it's about, I think, having fun. I mean, you know, if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying it, for me, if I'm not forgetting about the world, because that's the way I tell if I'm having fun, is if I'm forgetting about the world, then what's the point? Do something else. And that's okay. And I say this all the time also, if it's not the right place for you, it's okay. That's not a big deal. Right? There's plenty of people out there that this is the right place for. And there are plenty of people where this isn't the right place, and that's okay. Find your thing.
Preach.
I say that about when I interview people.
No,
No, it's true, because
you're right.
You know, you interview people, and it's okay that it doesn't work out. It's okay that
100%.
you said no to me giving you an offer for a job. Like, it's not the right place for you. Find the right place.
So many things. I mean, I could touch on so many things you just said there. Actually, I love that you said it, because that's always been a thing I've always told my coaches from day one, when we have all these trials that come in, and it's okay to have the conversation with a lot of people. And I say, actually, especially with members that come from other CrossFit gyms, because the adaptation from that to this is going to be different, and you have to be willing to trust the process here. And not a lot of people want to do that. Exactly like how you said with that one individual, and you're right, they didn't last, right? Because that was not the mindset here. It's a long-term process. And so when you really touch on that, for me, that hits home, because I've had that conversation a lot with a lot of people, whether if it's they're coming from another gym, or whether, you know, even if like one-on-one might be better for them, you know, or just in general, the energy here. And I appreciate you for pointing that out, because, you know, we try to do our best, right? And I always try to create this concept of positive vibes only, just by the way you're welcomed, the way you're introduced to the class, and the way it flows, and just the overall just atmosphere. You can tell there's an energetic difference. And so that's always been a motto and a part of it. And yeah, I mean, you know, you kind of have to really just let go of your layers, whether if it's an ego, whether it's whatever, to be willing to continue with the process here. But I also do remember your trial weeks too, and I think you learned that though too. I think at first, right, you came in with a really good mindset, like I'm here to just, I need to relearn. And I think you noticed very quickly, because maybe you had a few patterns that were like maybe a little old ones, and you quickly realized like, all right, I need to like slow down on the squatting progression and all that. And we've kind of touched on that a lot more recently for you, because you know, you've had some nicks and knacks and some injuries, not necessarily injury per se, I don't really want to call it that, but some things that need to be managed, because I think it's just a good realization to talk about this, and for the community to know, like, you have, from an assessment standpoint, a lot of, let's say, mobility restrictions and limitations. I mean, and trust me, you're not, I'm doing this a lot, like, you're not, like, let's just say, the worst I've ever seen, you know what I mean? I'll just say it like that.
It's like a rung above worse. Oh boy!
You're not the worst I've ever seen.
That's the one you're gonna cut up into a beam or something, right? You're not the worst.
We're gonna clip that one right there. You're not the worst I've ever seen. But
no, look, my shoulders are.
Look, we know you have a lot of restrictions.
I do.
Mobility. Now, I am very encouraging with saying you can really make a lot of progress. Just that takes a lot of time and effort and consciousness, which you know. But I think that's been great for you to actually have those restrictions, limitations, and even those little setbacks, because those are areas for growth of like reflecting on what do I actually need to work on to create sustainable progress.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and I'll add to that, right? Because I tweaked my back, right? Shoulders, my mobility is not great. It is what it is. You know, I have herniated discs in my back. And I tweaked my back doing something I shouldn't have been doing, which is a lot of reps at once, quickly. Like, that's not my thing. And it was, you know, it was a Friday afternoon. I was tired. I had actually gotten back from a business trip, and I'm like, let me get a workout in. And my form, I knew it. And my form was not great, and it happened. And I emailed you the next day,
Mhm.
and I said, I can't not come. Right?
Yep,
Like that's
yeah, I
exactly
remember,
how I
yeah.
put it. I was like, I can't not come.
Yep.
We got to figure this out. And you guys have all been great. And I want to say babied it, but we've babied it to the point where it's better. It's not great, but I do what I can here. There's certain things I just, from my back perspective, I can't do. But what I try not to be a pain in the ass either. I try to make it like, all right, quickly, what's the one thing I can do instead of that? And we quickly figure something out.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to be a burden. Like that's the key.
Mm.
I don't want any special treatment. I just kind of want to work out and be here. And the motto of just show up. Like I really just need to show up for me just to get in better shape, to be better.
Yeah, that's good. Good to point out too. I mean, look, all of us have some sort of bulging disc and herniations and stuff like that. Obviously you might be on a little bit more different level, but yeah, I mean, just know that anybody, we always say to everybody, if you have a setback, like we're willing to work with you, and just realize also you're not a burden, we want to make sure that everyone gets a collective experience.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, I at no point did you guys ever,
Right.
yeah. But even so last week I was playing basketball and I hurt my knee. And then we had these lunges, and I just could not drop that knee down. And Joe quickly came up with something else for me to do, which is great. I'm going to get more of I'm just warning you guys. Like, it's just with age, like Father Time always wins. Marco might disagree. He wants to disagree, but wait till you're 49, my friend. Father Time always wins, or Mother Time. And there's just things that happen over the course of playing sports that you get.
In life, and I think that just is a big part of like the just show up mentality is like you were saying you're worried about being a burden. Like it's 100% the opposite. Like we want people to show up. Like we've had members who tweak something even just at home or like skiing or something, and like we believe that like stay moving. Like CrossFit truly is infinitely scalable. I mean, and for example, like, my wife is pregnant. Like there's a million different things she's doing now just to like change progressions around. Like today, like she wasn't doing toes to bar, like infinitely scalable, like keep showing up. Like you're not broken glass. And like, I really think how you just like believe in still moving regardless of little things here and there, and just understanding that like, movement really is medicine, for your physical self and your like mental health. And I appreciate that. And I really advocate for that. Just keep showing up.
Do you, let's segue real quick and we'll get close to wrapping this up, because we talked about this and you said, I don't have an answer for this one.
Yeah.
We talk about non-negotiables, right? We've had a few episodes on, setting these things up, and obviously prioritizing sports seems like that's a non-negotiable for you, right? Because that's a passion. We talked a lot about passion on the podcast, where that has a concept of manifesting, who you are and your true self. And so you already kind of explained that story, right? You were young. You just had a passion for sports, passion for physical movement. And I continue to urge you to look deeper into like the why to that, right? The mystical, right? But yeah, you have a passion for sport. That's a non-negotiable, right? And obviously, you have the gym, a non-negotiable. Well, what's like maybe potentially a mental non-negotiable? Like, for example, when you catch yourself maybe being in a certain mindset that you don't, feel like is really you or the right fit. Like, what's something that you tell yourself? What's a non-negotiable for you that allows you to reset your frame of mind to, just be, again, a more positive, glowing person? Because we all have faults. Even though I'm Mr. Positive Vibes only, like I have my negative times too.
It's a really good question. I can be stubborn. And so I think the amount of time I allow myself to be stubborn has shortened, but I'm still very stubborn. I asked my wife, we were in New York yesterday, and I was stubborn with something yesterday, but it wasn't something that led into an entire sort of day of not having a good time. It was probably about a half an hour of us being uncomfortable, and that's okay. I mean, again, you work through it and it makes you stronger. I was trying to think about these non-negotiables because I really do feel like my work is pretty stressful. I mean, not in a unhealthy way. It's just, I am responsible for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm outside of work, the lack of structure is kind of what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same, we talked really briefly about cooking. Like, I don't bake.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use, formulas. I can't stand them, right? Recipes. I like to cook.
You're freestyle.
I do. So I like to look at a recipe
Yeah.
to see kind of what they're doing. And as soon as I realize like where we're going, I'm done. I'm like, all right. And I might go back to it in the middle just for a reminder, but I don't want to be burdened by like this recipe that I have to stick to. And that's kind of the way I am with my life, is that am I going to go to 6:15 or am I going to go to 7:30? Like, I like the flexibility of not putting that in my calendar, knowing I guess it's a non-negotiable. I'm going, but what time am I going? Like, let me be flexible about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess there's probably a ton of things that I'm not thinking about.
Yeah.
But I try to be a little bit more free-flowing. Now, again, like, my wife will watch this and she'll be like, you're the least free-flowing person I've ever met. But for me,
Yeah.
I've gotten a little bit more free-flowing, I guess, than I was before.
I love it.
What is your best dish that you cook? That's my only follow-up question for you there, Guy.
That's a fair question. So I've perfected a poke.
Okay.
I tried rolling sushi, and I was just complete crap at it. And it's so much work. And then you cut these 6 pieces, and the last 2 you have to discard because the rice isn't right. And like, people eat it in 4 seconds, like it's done. And there was that lack of satisfaction and it's interesting. Like, cooking also to me, we'll get it. Like, I tend to be a little selfish, and this my wife will agree with. No, but cooking for me is my way of not being like, I always eat last. Like, if there's not enough, I'm fine with that. Like, it's always me just trying to treat people, and I love the reactions. And so over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, I've perfected like my poke bowl. And I've got that list of, ingredients, not recipes, because I know what I'm doing, but like, there's all these, there's the sauces, there's the accoutrement, as we call them, the sushi rice and everything, and it's come together pretty well where that's like my go-to dish.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I'll have to have you over, both of you.
Many talents.
If you eat it, yeah.
Of course. Kidding me? I eat. People think that Coach Marco is like, look, I do eat very, let's say, clean. People don't also realize, like, and we're talking wives here. You ask my wife, she'll be the first one to call me out of like how I'm basically a dumpster truck for any food. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy the life of food and what it brings. So anything greasy, unhealthy, yes, I'll enjoy it, even though I'm not an advocate for it the most. But just fun facts. But anyway, I'm sure you create something pretty clean, and I would thoroughly enjoy it.
That was actually it's a clean meal.
Yeah. And I think one thing you touched on as we start closing up here was, you talk about your lifestyle and your job, right? And I think the gym just in general is that 1 hour for them to really just do something for themselves where they're not having the life of stress. And we shared a lot in last week during our gratitude circle. I brought up this concept because it was 9/11 week, and it's a week just, and not even just that day, but every day is a gift, right? And just how do we come back to gratitude for even just the little things, just life in general, but like even the fact that even though we have these jobs that are challenging, like that's a gift in itself too. We have these just consistent opportunities, even that the ones that they challenge us. And so we have these gifts that allow us to do our jobs and to do these things on a day-to-day basis, even though sometimes they might not be the most easy things, right? And they cause a lot of discomfort or maybe mental discomfort. But, they still are parts of our path. And I just kind of just something as a self-reflection for all 3 of us, right? But, for you, it's just, remember, obviously, this is a space for you to recognize that you have this, as for part of your own self-growth. But, just really also know that, all those challenges in the life that we have, every part of it's a gift to really honor. And I'm fortunate that I can run a gym, but even though this is not per se work, it is stressful. Like
Sure.
I have no guarantees ever.
Yeah.
Something could happen here and then I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Right. So, but every day I just thoroughly look forward to this. So, but yeah, just wanted to kind of just note on that for you and just appreciate you for sharing that. Cause again, you're not the only one. A lot of people come here and they're just like, I need this hour. I need to like get out of life, but also lastly on that is just, how do you take this to look forward to going back into life? Like, do you take what you learn here to also translate to like how you are as a person at your work or how you are as a person with your family? Because I think the bigger thing to look at is like, even though this is your place to zone out and not be in reality, it's a place for you to take and translate outside.
So that's why I come in the mornings where my body is not in the right place, right? You lay flat for however many hours and you wake up, and for me, as I've gotten older, like I'm just stiffer. And so my perfect time to work out is actually 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. But starting my day with this is really important because it allows me to be a better human with my coworkers, with my wife, with my kids. I feel like it takes a lot of the stress away. I think people realize it's just that, like we talked about, that push, but this de-stresses you and allows you to be better at everything else. And it doesn't matter what you're doing in here, right? It's just that you're here doing something. And if it's, like we talked about, if it's not here, go run a mile, go do something else, but get yourself moving, I think, to start the day so that it just translates into, it like clears the mind a little bit, right? It clears the soul, the spirit, and everything, and you could start your day kind of fresh. Whereas you wake up, you're groggy, you roll out of bed, you take a shower, you get to work, I don't know, you don't have that ability to sort of reset. And I think that's really important, and it's helped, with how I am. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I have a fantastic family, I have great kids, I have an amazing wife. I'm at times not the easiest person to get along with, but I'm probably a tiny bit easier to get along with because I do this in the mornings.
Love it. The gym gets the Guy glowing. That's what it
does. Yeah.
All right, Joe, you got any last thing for Guy here before we wrap it up?
No, I just appreciate you, man. Like I really have enjoyed getting to know you, having you, like, I don't know, us both growing at the same time. And it's been, one thing that like I really appreciated, like, was you offering that welcoming environment to me, like when I played softball with you, like welcoming me into your community, and you carry those vibes that like we try to embody here into your life, and I'm grateful. And maybe we could play basketball or something. I have a mid-range. I'm a mid-range jump shot king. So
the worst shot in basketball, by the way.
I'm a statistical. The spreadsheet guys hate me.
Yes.
I'm like Tim Duncan.
Yes.
But appreciate you, man, and I just love seeing you show up every day.
Thank you. I appreciate you both as well.
Oh man, Guy's got the glow and Joe's got this. It's called the sun energy.
The sun energy.
Why he doesn't have a bad bone in his body? He's got a sun on him. I learned that through some journeys together. So one last question here, man. Just in a quick sentence, like, what does just show up mean to you? This is something we ask everybody. And so what does it mean to you to just show up? Be shallow, deep, whatever you want it.
No, it's going to be shallow. It literally is those, right? 3 words, just show up, just get here. And it means, because it's fun, I'm actually wearing the Just Show Up shirt underneath my sweatshirt. But it's my first piece of MFB swag.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to more pieces, but like, I think you're a better person from just showing up, right? And not just physically, just as a human being. And I look at, like, how could you be worse? And I don't mean that in, like, when we talked about my my mobility, and I'm not the worst you've ever seen. Like, but how could you be worse coming here for half an hour, for an hour? Like, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you dog it, you're still better
Mm.
the hour later than you were the hour before. So show up and like get better.
Just show up, you'll still be better. All right. Well, Guy, again, like Joe said, we appreciate you, man. We're grateful. Just keep up the good work, and just think the long run with all you guys, and just remember we're thinking 10, 20, 30 years from now. So, yeah, we're just getting started, brother. All right.
Cool.
Good stuff. All right. Well, guys, again, we had a great episode today. A lot of Guy wisdom here, so take with it as you can. It's a lot to digest, and we'll clip up some really good ones for you. So, yeah, tune in next week. We got some good topics coming up for you, and we'll see you at the gym. All right.